The day was a blur of black. Black dresses, black suits, black cars, and the suffocating blackness of grief that had swallowed my world whole. It was my sister, Clara's, funeral. Or at least, what I thought was her funeral. I stood there, a numb automaton in a rented black dress that felt too tight, too formal, too everything. The scent of lilies, sickeningly sweet, clung to the air, mingling with the faint metallic tang of tears I hadn't cried yet. My parents, stoic and pale, stood beside me. Mom, usually a vibrant sunflower, was a wilted, broken stem. Dad, a man of booming laughter and bear hugs, was a silent, hunched shadow. Their grief was a tangible thing, a heavy cloak that seemed to press down on everyone in the church. The minister, a kind man who had known Clara since she was a mischievous toddler, spoke in hushed tones about her vibrant spirit, her infectious laugh, her passion for painting. Each word was a fresh stab, a reminder of what we had lost. Clara, my older sister by 2 years, my best friend, my confidant. We had shared everything. Secrets whispered in the dark, scraped knees, first crushes, dreams for the future. Her absence was a gaping wound in my soul. I remember staring at the closed casket, a polished mahogany box that held all my hopes and dreams for a future with her. It felt surreal, like a terrible play I was forced to act in. Clara? Gone? The girl who had once convinced me that garden gnomes came alive at night and stole socks? The artist who saw beauty in everything, even the cracks in old pavement? It was impossible. My phone, tucked into my small purse, vibrated. I almost ignored it. Who would be texting me now? Probably a sympathy message from some distant relative, another well-intentioned but ultimately hollow platitude. But a strange, inexplicable urge made me pull it out. A single, unknown number. My thumb hovered over the screen, hesitant. Then I opened it. The words hit me with the force of a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs, making the world tilt on its axis. I'm alive. Don't trust Mom and Dad. My breath hitched. My heart, already a bruised and battered thing, slammed against my ribs. Alive? Clara? It had to be a cruel, twisted joke, a sick prank. But who would be so heartless? And don't trust Mom and Dad? The words echoed in my mind, a chilling whisper. My eyes darted to my parents. They stood there, seemingly lost. In their grief, their faces etched with sorrow. Could it be true? Could they be involved in something so monstrous? My mind reeled, trying to make sense of the impossible. I read the message again, my fingers trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. It was Clara's writing style, short and to the point. No emojis, no flowery language, just the stark, terrifying truth. Panic, cold and sharp, began to seep into my veins, pushing out the grief, replacing it with a terrifying uncertainty. What did it mean? If Clara was alive, why were we here? Why was there a coffin? The rest of the funeral passed in a haze. I barely registered the condolences, the hymns, the eulogy. My mind was a whirlwind of questions, suspicions, and a desperate, fragile hope. My sister, alive. The thought was a beacon in the suffocating darkness, but it was surrounded by a treacherous sea of doubt and fear. After the burial, a quiet, somber affair under a sky the color of slate, we returned to our house. The air inside was heavy with unspoken sadness, the ghost of Clara's laughter seeming to echo in the empty rooms. Friends and family milled about, offering casseroles and awkward hugs. I barely tasted the food, my stomach in knots. I retreated, to my room, locking the door behind me. I pulled out my phone, staring at the message again. The words were still there, stark and unbelievable. I tried calling the number, but it went straight to voicemail. I texted back, a frantic stream of questions. "Clara, is this really you? Where are you? What's going on?" No reply. I paced my room, my mind racing. What could possibly make Clara fake her own death? And why would she tell me not to trust? Mom and Dad? They were our parents, the people who had always protected us, loved us unconditionally. The thought that they could be involved in something so sinister was abhorrent, yet the message was from Clara. And if Clara was alive, then everything I thought I knew was a lie. I started to replay the last few weeks, looking for clues, for anything that might hint at this bizarre deception. Clara had been acting a little off, I remembered, more withdrawn than usual, spending hours in her room, her phone always in her hand. But I had attributed it to the stress of her final year, of art school, the pressure of exhibitions and portfolio deadlines. Never once did I suspect something like this. And Mom and Dad, they had been devastated. Their grief had seemed so genuine, so raw. Could it all have been an act? The thought sent a shiver of revulsion down my spine. I tried to push it away, but the message, Clara's message, wouldn't let me. I spent hours that night just staring at the ceiling, my mind a tangled mess of confusion and fear. Sleep wouldn't come. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside, sounded like a secret. The next morning, I tried to act normal, though my insides felt like a swarm of angry bees. Mom and Dad were still submerged in their grief, moving slowly, speaking in whispers. They looked exhausted, their eyes red-rimmed. If they were faking it, they were doing an Oscar-worthy performance. I knew I needed to find out more. I needed to talk to Clara, to understand what was happening. But how? She hadn't replied to my texts, and her phone was off. I felt utterly alone, trapped in a nightmare. I started with small things. I went into Clara's room, a place that had been declared off-limits since her death. It was exactly as she had left it. Easels with unfinished canvases, tubes of paint scattered on her desk, art books piled high. I ran my hand over her desk, a strange ache in my chest. If she was alive, why had she left everything behind? Then I noticed something. A small worn sketchpad tucked under her bed, almost hidden. It was one she always carried with her, filled with quick sketches and notes. I picked it up, my heart pounding. I hadn't seen this one before. I flipped through the pages. Sketches. Of trees, faces, abstract shapes. Then, near the back, I saw it. A series of drawings, not her usual style. They were rough, hurried, almost frantic. Images of a dark, windowless room, bars, a small, narrow cot. My blood ran cold. And then, a tiny, almost invisible drawing in the corner of one page. It was a crude map, really. A few intersecting lines, a small circle, an X mark. It looked like a very simplified layout of a building, or maybe even a cellar. Underneath it, written in Clara's distinctive, neat handwriting, were 3 words. Old Miller Mill, the old Miller Mill, an abandoned building on the outskirts of town, crumbling and overgrown. We used to dare each other to go near it as kids, spinning ghost stories about its deserted halls. Why would Clara draw this, and why the other unsettling images? A new wave of dread washed over me. This wasn't just about Clara faking her death. This felt darker, more dangerous. I knew I couldn't go to Mom and Dad. Clara's message was clear. I was on my own. I needed to be careful to not raise any suspicions. I pretended to be grieving, going through the motions, all the while my mind was buzzing with a frantic energy. That evening, I told Mom and Dad I needed to clear my head, that I was going for a walk. They looked at me with sad eyes, telling me to be careful, to not stay out too late. Their concern seemed genuine. It was agonizing, this push and pull between my love for them and the chilling suspicion that Clara's message had planted. I walked quickly, the chill of the evening air doing little to cool the fire in my gut. The old Miller Mill was a good 45-minute walk from our house, a solitary landmark surrounded by dense woods. I had never been there alone before. As I approached the mill, the setting sun cast long, eerie shadows. The building loomed, a hulking skeleton against the darkening sky, its broken windows like vacant eyes. A knot of fear tightened in my stomach. What if Clara wasn't here? What if this was all a terrible misunderstanding? Or worse, what if she was, and something awful had happened? I found a way in through a dilapidated side door that hung loosely on its hinges. The air inside was thick with dust and the smell of decay. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom, illuminating crumbling walls and rusted machinery. Every creak and groan of the old building made me jump. I followed the rough map from Clara's sketchpad, my heart hammering against my ribs. Down a narrow, winding staircase, into the belly of the mill. The air grew colder, heavier. My flashlight beam landed on a sturdy wooden door, reinforced with thick metal bands. It was the only door in this section of the mill that didn't look like it was about to fall apart. I tried the handle. It was locked. Panic flared. Was I too late? Or was I wrong? Then I saw it. Tucked into a crack in the old wood, a small, folded piece of paper. My name, written in Clara's unmistakable hand, was scrawled on the outside. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. Inside, a small tarnished silver key lay nestled, and a new message. The key to the lock on the big oak tree in our backyard. The rest is there. Be careful. I love you, Lily. My breath hitched. The big oak tree. The one we used to climb, as kids, where we had a secret hideout. My mind raced. Why there? I knew I couldn't open this door here. Not yet. I needed to be sure. And I needed to get out before Mom and Dad realized I was gone for too long. I made my way back home, the silver key clutched tightly in my hand, my mind a storm of fear and a fragile, desperate hope. When I got back, Mom and Dad were watching TV, their faces still etched with a quiet sadness. I mumbled something about needing fresh air, and they nodded, not really paying attention. I felt a pang of guilt, but it was quickly overshadowed by the urgency of what I needed to do. Later that night, when the house was silent and dark, I crept outside. The full moon cast an ethereal glow on our backyard, illuminating the familiar shape of the old oak tree. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm as I climbed the worn branches to our old hideout. It was still there, the small wooden box we had buried years ago, filled with childhood trinkets. But under it, buried a little deeper, was something else. A small waterproof container. My hands shook as I dug it up. Inside, there was a stack of papers, a small burner phone, and a thick envelope of cash. The papers were a journal, written in Clara's hand. I started reading, my eyes scanning the words in the dim moonlight. It was a chilling tale. Clara had discovered something dark about our parents, something illegal, something that involved a lot of money and some very dangerous people. She hadn't gone into details, only hinted at it, worried about implicating me. She had been trying to expose them, to gather evidence. But they had found out. They hadn't killed her, not directly. They had staged her death, faked the funeral. Why? To make her disappear, to silence her, to protect their secrets. And they had held her captive, in a remote, undisclosed location, the place she had drawn in her sketchpad, the old Miller Mill. My blood ran cold. They had been holding my sister captive, while putting on a performance of grief for the entire town. It was monstrous, unthinkable. But then, the journal took a turn. Clara had managed to escape. A few days before the funeral, she had found a way out, just barely. She had left the message at the mill as a last resort, hoping I would find it. She had been on the run ever since, living off the grid, trying to find a way to expose them without putting herself, or me, in further danger. The burner phone was for us to communicate, a lifeline in this terrifying new reality. My sister was alive, and she was a fugitive, hunted by our own parents. Tears, hot and stinging, finally spilled down my face. Not tears of grief, but of fear, of anger, of overwhelming love and relief. I called the number on the burner phone. It rang once, twice, and then a familiar voice, slightly hoarse, whispered, "Lily?" "Clara," I choked out, my voice thick with emotion. "It's me. I got your message. I found everything." A shaky sigh of relief came through the line. "Oh, thank God. I was so worried." We talked for what felt like hours, whispering under the cover of darkness. Clara filled in the gaps, told me the horrifying details, the extent of our parents' deceit. It was worse than I could have imagined. They weren't just involved in something illegal. They were deep in with a criminal organization, money laundering, and even worse. They had tried to silence Clara because she knew too much, because she was going to go to the authorities. The grief I had felt for Clara was now replaced by a burning rage, a cold, hard determination. My parents, the people who had raised me, who I had loved and trusted, were monsters, and they had done unspeakable things to my sister. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice trembling but firm. "We expose them," Clara said, her voice filled with a newfound strength. "We bring them down, but we have to be smart, Lily. We have to be careful. They're dangerous." I looked at the old oak tree, the silent witness to our childhood secrets, now the keeper of a far darker truth. My sister was alive, and together we would fight. The blackness of grief had lifted, replaced by a steely resolve. The funeral had been a lie, but our bond, our love, was real. And it was stronger than any secret, any betrayal. We would get through this. We would make them pay, and we would finally be free.